So the principles are all there from God. So you would not find a situation, because what mankind, that is, and women, we think, we behave, and we have our organic needs and so on. This doesn't change. Technology can change. Whether you live in a palace or just on the streets, you'll still have to live somewhere to, spend your sleeping. We have to sleep. Otherwise, you're going to go very, very, you know what happens if you don't sleep successively, continuously. So these kind of, our urge for eating to sustain our life, getting tired and sleeping and so on and so forth, these won't change. Our need for companionship and love, these won't change. These things, what Allah has addressed and given us framework and how to conduct our life accordingly. So it is not anything asking different that you do. It's actually doing this in a framework which is conducive, which is really beneficial to you and to the broader society. So when you come to Islam, you're coming with this identity that, okay, fine, I acknowledge Allah is my Lord, my Creator, and I surrender to His will. If He says, for example, do not kill, I know killing is bad. I can appreciate that. But there might be other commands, for example, I'm supposed to do, which I don't appreciate. Yeah. So this is where when you come through a comprehensive system of God, because you trust in God and you love Him, and you fulfill your life accordingly, this is what is required of us.
I understand this, but let me put one point across. For example, student loans. Yeah? Now I know interest is, I've heard, is one of the worst things you can do in Islam. Now, 1,400 years ago, I'm sure there was no universities, right? And there wasn't much education for people like how there is today. Now, let's say a Muslim sister wants to go and get a loan out because she doesn't have enough money to go become a doctor. Yeah? I was having this debate with someone earlier on. And she wants to save lives, but she knows that's one of the biggest sins she can do, but it's not for wrong, it's for doing right. Why should she come away from that? Because God tells her this. Now, that's my point. Now, I'm sure in the commandments it's written as one of the worst things because you shouldn't take a loan out, because people take loans out for bad things and do, bad things with it. But this is for a good thing. So why should a Muslim sister not go after that and not take a loan out to God?
Very, 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 very good question. I mean, if a scholar were to analyze the situation, I'm sure they will give, and this is what the beauty of Islam is. Islam is always flexible in deriving its laws from the sources of Islam. So you have the Quran and you have the Sunnah of the Prophet ﷺ, you have the understanding and the agreement of the companions of the Prophet ﷺ, and then you have the analogical deduction based on all these three, if there is a direct evidence absent. They will come up with a good solution on this issue.
But I want to. Human being telling me that.
No, it's not human being telling. God and His Messenger has provided this framework how to conduct our life. So any problems that arises, whether it's student loans or euthanasia, whether it's rehabilitation with methadone or whatever, solutions will be provided. Based on that. But this solution has to be in conformity with this framework. That's the difference.
That's my point, though.
Yeah.
For example, Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, he might not have known, or God might not have, I know God is all-knowing, sorry, but I'm just saying that we make time what it is. We make life what it is, right? So we might have made something that it doesn't have an answer to in the Quran, like loans. Maybe there is no answer.
But what I just said is, things will come as new problems, new situations.
Yeah, new situations.
In Islam, we have a process called ijtihad, where you deduce the rulings based on the framework. And the framework, as I said, was the Book of God, the Sunnah of the Prophet, his actions, his approvals, his disapprovals, his teaching, basically, and the collective consensus of his companions on a certain matter. And these are the frameworks. So if you find directly in the Book of Allah, then you have the solution. If you don't find it there and you find it in the teaching of the Prophet ﷺ, you can take it from there. If you find that the companions have similar issues, for example, they explain it and they agree that the solution is there. If you don't find in any of these places, then you have what we call qiyas, this analogical deduction, basically, what you have to do in a situation where there is nothing directly mentioned in the primary sources of Islam. There's always this fourth, foundational pillar.
That's what I want to know.
Yeah, so it's there. That is why the Islamic jurists, in fact, jurisprudence is a big subject, and specialized people are studying this subject for that very field. We've called them faqih, for example, and they will give issues of verdicts or fatwa and so on, so forth, based on this framework. So the difference between individual assessment of situation without God's framework and looking at the framework and arriving at an answer is different. Our approach should be, whatever problem arises, the solution should be in line with God's framework. Yeah?
Yeah.
I'm using the word
Yeah,
framework
yeah,
very
yeah.
loosely. Yeah?
Yeah.
Do you agree it's the best way?
I agree.
So
But
Islam,
what if there's something that's
yeah.
not,
So-
you can't find in the framework?
Islam provides that. Now suppose something is totally, student loan probably is not a good example. Maybe it will be justified by some scholars depending on situation and so on.
Is that on their interpretation of it, or is it say something?
Based on this
their-
framework. Based on this framework.
On their interpretation.
But it may be something like, say, let's give something obvious example where, saying at this situation, you know what, society has changed now, everyone's eating pork, let's eat pork, for example. Can we not do that? Because, for example, something is clear-cut like this, it would not be justified by any schools of law in Islam and saying, oh, the framework allows that, because it's clearly clear-cut forbidden. Totally not allowed, impermissible. So we have to understand that sometimes it may be that there are things which are totally impermissible, but people feel the need for it. Now, if you think about this, is your need more important than following God's law? Because God already provided a framework for a reason. For example, He has said, don't eat blood or dead meat. Right. Some people might say, no, but I like it. Everyone likes it. So you like it even though knowing there's a reason for its impermissibility. So are you going to go for your own wishes, because I like it, and go against the laws of God? Then how are you really loving God? If God gave you a framework through which you conduct your life, show your love and gratitude to Him, this is the framework that we should abide by.
But this is where my point
Yeah.
is like.
So just to finish on this point, and of course you can say what you have to say on this issue. If we find there's something that goes against the commands of God, then we should ask ourselves: is it really necessary for me to go against the command of God just because there's a need for it?
Yes.
Because God has given us this life and created all with one same purpose, to worship Him, right? But not everyone will have the same level of living their life. Some people maybe not so smart, some people very smart, but each one will have to fulfill their purpose depending on what the level of their capability, right? Those people who are totally insane, they will not be accountable for, because they are not able to distinguish between right and wrong and so on. Yeah? So situation can arise. You just have to see, do I need to follow this? Is it something that is, just my wishes and my desires? Because my wish, if I make my wish my God, my desire my God, then I haven't really showed my love and my gratitude to Allah.
Yes,
Yeah?
yes.
So that's why we draw the line. For example, man cannot wear gold. You might think, so what? What's so special about gold? But Allah's told us not to wear gold. It could be one way of testing us. Are we really showing our allegiance, our surrendering to Allah, even though something as mundane as wearing gold? Yeah?
I understand that.
Yeah? This is where the framework comes in.
To go back to, for example, you're saying pork, right? Now, let's say, I was talking about red meat earlier. Red meat is probably worse or as bad as pork at the moment today. Now, 2,000 years ago, maybe it wasn't. But this is my point. Should we ban red meat now? I think it's wrong.
Why is it bad? Is the antibiotics right?
It's been proven that red meat is as bad or even worse than pork.
Do you know what Prophet Muhammad said about red meat? I'm sure, if I'm not mistaken, only eat a little bit.
I know, but it's still, right now, I understand that, but maybe 2,000 years ago, it's not as bad as it is today. I've read up on it.
But red
It's
meat
worse.
on its own doesn't make you unhealthy. Eating excessively, a lot of things can make
But
you.
it is cancerous.
Right. Red meat is not. I work in a cancerous area as well, right? Your interest in cancer, my interest is in cancer as well. Okay. I study cancer therapeutics.
But you can admit
Right.
that red
No,
meat
no,
is as
there
bad as
are-
pork. It is.
Not
It's
necessarily.
on the highest list of meats.
There are many,
bad
many,
meats.
many things which we will say, look, we should try to avoid from our diet, but it doesn't mean it is something that is carcinogenic.
But you have to admit that now, because of what they're injecting into these animals, we are getting poisoned by it by eating meat. Because meat is become cancerous. This is my point.
Yeah.
So my point is that now I believe as people we should become vegetarians
Is there
because
countries-
of our inside health and of the fact that what's going into these chickens, what they're injecting into these is poison.
What about the vegetables?
And vegetables, I understand that.
So you have to not
But
be
there's a
vegetarian
difference.
as well. You have to leave yourself from eating anything.
Yes, no, but I understand. But there's a big difference of the meat to the vegetables and the badness of the meat. So my point is that now, as a person, should I think to myself, okay, do I need to stop eating meat now? Because I wasn't told.
Okay.
to.
Where is the
Understand what I
problem?
mean?
Is the problem the meat itself or what's been introduced in the meat?
Both. Maybe it was, like you said, Prophet Muhammad said only eat a little bit because he knew it wasn't good for you. But now, from them times to now, I'm sure meat in general, chicken, it's got much worse. And we
But
know
the
this.
chicken on itself, I'm not sure why we're talking about meats and
Yeah,
chicken.
sorry,
every
I'm
day.
just saying.
Instead of
I'm
feeling
just,
angry, like,
it's just, I'm just saying.
late in the day, right?
No, sorry, I'm just saying. It's
joking,
just, I'm just trying to give an example of something that has become much worse, and it's not actually good for human beings now to understand that there's certain things that will change that we can work around.
there's a
maybe.
different approach though we should take. Instead of saying, look, water is so much polluted, we should stop drinking water. Meat is so much been, introduced other chemicals and poisonous elements within it, we should stop eating meat. We should view it differently. The problem is, like in chicken, for example, in poultry, we are introducing things which are unhealthy. We should stop introducing them.
Yes.
We are doing this because we want mass production, easy transport. You know how to make egg shells stronger, how they introduce manganese and other chemicals so that the shells is stronger during transport. That's how they feed the chicken. But if we start thinking, stop thinking in this commercialization process and say, look, our health should come first, our health concerns. Okay? That's why a lot of work and study and research is been doing on preventing cancer,
Yes.
right?
Yes.
And our diets
Yes.
is a big part of it, as you know.
Big part.
And so is our exercise and all the other
Yes,
things.
yes.
So instead of just looking at the issue in a different way, we should say, look, we should stop polluting our air, stop polluting our land, stop polluting our water, stop polluting our food, our vegetables and so on.
That's my point.
Yep. Now,
1,400 years ago, did they drive? No, but I'm sure if they did, maybe that would have been forbidden.
but look at the principle though. Look at the principle. Allah and His Messenger, what have they said? Allah already says about this, ظهر الفساد في البر والبحر. Corruption, pollution has occurred in land and sea, what man has earned, or what they have done with their own hands.
So
We are introducing.
It's kind
so
of
Allah,
showing you as well,
yes.
pollution is wrong as well.
Allah
It's kind
says,
of showing you these things. I get what
So
you mean, yeah.
the principle, the message is already there. Allah says that He has set up a balance.
Yes.
وَلَا تُخْسِرُ الْمِيزَانِ. Do not upset this balance.
Yes,
We are creating holes in the ozone layer.
yes.
Allah has already told us 1400 years ago, don't do that.
Okay,
Don't
that's-
create this
This
imbalance.
is my point. So that's what you mean. So basically, these sayings, basically
The
in
answers are
Islam,
there, and they will come up.
for things that don't even state that this is, you need to not do this, you have to understand that there's a moderation in everything. That means pollution's wrong, that means this is wrong. I just want to say.
Would we be injecting
Now-
animals with intoxicants, as would be, that would at some point be helpful to mankind, but then start causing sicknesses to mankind under Islam? More than likely it will stop, because the rulership is, if we're harming
Yes.
mankind, it will stop.
I get what you're trying to say. So he's trying to say basically
Yeah.
anything that's kind of harming us in an environment where we need to know that's wrong. So even if necessarily it doesn't say cars are wrong or this is wrong, we need to understand that it's in our principle of what is written. I understand that. So that's where my point comes across to do with loans and university. So if in that case we understand that these things are wrong and we know that this is in our principle of our morals, then that could still have the same case of getting a loan out. Because we understand that interest is wrong in these principles and our morals, but we know that it's not something we're doing for a wrongdoing. We're going to make ourselves better people. Do you understand what I mean?
No, I understand.
As
But
far as you know-
So that's
I
the
want
same
to, I want to, I
thing,
want to
isn't
just point to one thing though. In Islam, we have this principle, or we don't have this principle, which is the principle of Robin Hood. Robin Hood in the Sherwood Forest in Nottingham. Is it Nottingham? Right. you know, what he was doing is what? As the tale goes, he was stealing from the rich, not because he wants to steal, but he had a good intention. To do what? To then distribute to the poor.
Yes.
So intention is good, but the method was wrong.
Yes.
In Islam, the method has to be correct. Intention has to be good, of course, but the method to arrive